When it comes to controlling the destinies of men and women, the devil never wastes time on brute force. Instead, he finds his greatest leverage in two of society's most sacred institutions, education and religion. Show me how a child is taught to think, and I will show you the adult I can control, he boasted in our interview. The irony? Most people never question the invisible hands shaping their values, their fears, and even their understanding of right and wrong. The devil explained that education, in its purest sense, is the art of drawing out wisdom and potential. But, as he sees it, modern schooling is more often the art of conformity, teaching children what to think, not how to think. Most schools, he said, reward obedience, repetition, and the ability to recite another's opinion. Few reward curiosity, courage, or the art of questioning authority. In his world, standardized tests and memorized facts build excellent followers, but rarely leaders. He described how the seeds of fear are sown early, the fear of being wrong, the fear of failing, the fear of being different. A classroom should be a laboratory for ideas, but I turn it into a courtroom. Children learn quickly that the safest way through is to keep their heads down, their hands quiet, and their questions silent. Over time, this creates adults who hesitate to dream, who second-guess their instincts, who shrink from risk and independent thought. I asked about the purpose of education. The devil replied, "True education awakens vision and ambition. But my aim is to keep minds small, to convince people that all the important answers have already been given. The greatest danger to my influence is a person who dares to think for themselves, who sees the world as something to question, to improve, to reimagine." Religion, he confessed, is even more powerful in his arsenal. Where schools shape minds, religion shapes souls. I love dogmath, rigid rules, the warnings of eternal punishment, the idea that asking questions is rebellion. Many faiths offer comfort and guidance, but when twisted, they become tools for guilt, fear, and unquestioning obedience. He described how the fear of damnation can be even more potent than the fear of earthly failure. But the devil admitted that the greatest teachers, both spiritual and secular, are the ones who invite doubt, curiosity, and honest seeking. A true teacher welcomes questions, honors mystery, and sees doubt as a doorway, not a threat. My power is weakest where learning is alive, where religion is rooted in love, and where people are encouraged to seek their own answers. We explored the double-edged sword of community. Schools and churches offer belonging, but also the terror of exile for the nonconformist. Many choose silence over truth, obedience over authenticity. In doing so, they hand me the keys to their future. The devil ended this part with a warning. The world will praise you for fitting in, for memorizing the script, for keeping the faith of your parents unquestioned, but the price is your originality. If you want freedom, you must risk disapproval. You must teach yourself to learn and allow yourself to doubt. So, ask yourself, who taught you what you believe? Which lessons help you grow and which keep you small? The greatest defense against the devil's influence isn't just knowledge, but the courage to question, to seek, and to choose for yourself. Determined to go deeper, I pressed the devil. How exactly do education and religion combine to shape a person's mindset for better or worse? What's the mechanism by which these institutions create followers, not leaders? The devil, ever the strategist, offered a blueprint so subtle that most never notice its grip. He began with early conditioning. Children arrive as natural explorers, curious, creative, and unafraid to ask why. But the process of socialization, driven by both schools and faith traditions, quickly teaches them there are right and wrong questions. Children internalize the fear of standing out, the shame of doubt, the danger of challenging the official story. When every answer must fit a template, the mind becomes a filing cabinet, not a forge. The devil described the reward system in schools. Gold stars, grades, and praise are given for the ability to remember and repeat, not to challenge or reinterpret. Punishment follows mistakes and independent thought. Over years, this trains the brain to avoid risk, to seek approval, to equate external validation with self-worth. Soon, the young person confuses safety with success. We talked about religion's unique power. Where education molds thought, religion molds conscience. In its purest form, faith is a journey toward meaning and unity. But twisted, it becomes a tool for conformity and control. Dogma is repeated, not questioned. Rituals become habits, not sources of renewal. The threat of spiritual failure, of being bad, of facing judgment cements obedience more deeply than any grade ever could. The devil explained how shame and guilt become internal police officers. Long after teachers and preachers have left, their voices remain. The adult polices themselves, editing their dreams, hiding their doubts, staying silent when truth would cost them acceptance. They live a double life, outwardly compliant, inwardly restless. We explored the double-edged sword of community. Schools and churches can be sanctuaries or prisons, depending on whether they reward curiosity or punish difference. The very longing to belong, a natural human instinct, can be used to silence the voice within. Most people would rather betray themselves than be cast out. The devil admitted his favorite technique: teaching finality. If I can convince someone that all questions have been answered, I own their future. If a person believes their duty is to preserve, not create or accept, not imagine, they become predictable, manageable. The spirit of innovation is replaced by the comfort of tradition. He offered a counter-strategy. The most dangerous people to my plans are lifelong learners and spiritual explorers. Those who hold faith lightly, ask better questions, and stay open to change, they are immune to my traps. They use education and religion as launch pads, not cages. The devil finished with a provocation. So, ask yourself, where did your deepest beliefs come from? Which are truly yours, and which were simply handed down? The most powerful act is not to reject, but to re-examine, renew, and remake your own meaning. As this part ended, one message was clear. True freedom requires the courage to unlearn, to question, and to outgrow the boundaries set by others. By now, I could see how deep the roots of early conditioning run, but I wanted specifics. How do lessons learned in school and church linger in adulthood? What patterns from childhood shape the lives of grown men and women, often without their even noticing? The devil, ever patient, answered with a knowing smirk. He began with the invisible scripts. Most adults walk through life following scripts, written long ago, scripts about what's possible, what's forbidden, who they must please, and what happens if they step out of line. A man may spend his entire career seeking approval, never realizing he's still chasing a teacher's gold star. A woman may silence her voice in meetings, haunted by the fear of raising her hand in the wrong classroom or the judgmental stares from the pews. The devil described the power of unquestioned authority. When people grow up taught to revere teachers and preachers as infallible, they struggle to challenge authority as adults. They defer to experts, bosses, and institution 7 when their own wisdom whispers a different answer. The fear of getting in trouble outlives childhood. He explained how guilt and shame become self-sustaining. You do not need a teacher to scold you if your inner critic has learned the lesson well. The tiniest misstep, being late, missing a goal, voicing a controversial idea, can trigger a cascade of self-rebuke. For many, guilt is the background music of life, never loud, but always playing. We discussed the shadow side of community. Adults often gravitate toward groups that reward sameness and punish innovation. Workplaces, social circles, even families. The longing for acceptance can stunt growth. People hide dreams, mute their opinions, and compromise values in exchange for a seat at the table. The price of fitting in is authenticity. The devil illuminated the problem with static faith and stagnant learning. Many stop asking questions. Faith, once a journey, becomes a destination, a set of rules, not a relationship. Education, meant to launch curiosity, becomes a checklist. As soon as someone believes they are finished, they become easy to direct. My favorite adults are the ones who never wonder, what else could I become? But he conceded that the cycle can be broken. The truly free are those who see these scripts for what they are: stories, not destinies. They notice the reflex to apologize, to ask for permission, to seek applause. They pause, question, and bit by bite rewrite their patterns. We talked about practical steps for liberation. First, identify the scripts you're following. When do you feel the urge to please? When do you hesitate to speak or act? Write down the voices in your head. Whose approval are you still seeking? Next, expose your beliefs to fresh air. Talk about them with others who value growth. Doubt is not betrayal, it's the start of transformation. The devil left me with a challenge. Can you risk being misunderstood for the sake of truth? Can you allow yourself to learn even when it means unlearning? Freedom is not rebellion for its own sake, but the courage to choose your own path even if it means walking alone for a while. As this part ended, the lesson was unmistakable. Education and religion shape far more than childhood. They echo through every choice, every fear, every hope. The work of adulthood is not to rebel blindly, but to awaken, to examine, and to create meaning that is truly your own. With each revelation, the true reach of early training became clearer. I pressed further. If education and religion shape so much of who we become, what's the path to genuine self-authorship? How does a person move beyond inherited scripts, reclaim their mind, and live by their own wisdom? The devil, sensing the heart of the matter, became serious. He began with the necessity of questioning. Every real transformation starts with a question. Is this belief serving me? Did I choose it, or was it chosen for me? Most people assume their worldview is just the way things are, but those who awaken begin to challenge every assumption, even the sacred ones. He described the power of reflection. Set aside time for honest inquiry without fear of being wrong. Ask yourself, what do I fear and why? Who benefits from me holding this belief? Does my faith or my education make me feel more free or more afraid? Reflection is the tool that uncovers which lessons are wisdom and which are just old echoes. The devil spoke of the courage to be misunderstood. If you start to live by your own examined truths, you will be questioned, doubted, even criticized, especially by those most invested in tradition. True self-authorship means risking disapproval, walking alone when necessary, and letting go of the need to be seen as good by everyone. He described the value of choosing teachers wisely. You cannot escape influence, but you can choose it. Seek out mentors and communities that value open inquiry over dogma. Read widely, question deeply, and hold your guides to a high standard. Do they invite questions, or do they punish doubt? We discussed faith as a living process. The most resilient spirituality is not rigid, but evolving. Doubt is not the enemy of faith, but its partner pushing you to go deeper, to make meaning your own. The same is true for learning. Real education never ends. A mind that is always seeking, always open, is a mind that is hard to control. The devil explained the practice of self-inquiry. Make it a habit to ask, where did this idea come from? Does it align with my lived experience? Am I acting from love or from fear? The more you question, the more you return to your own center rather than orbiting someone else's. He revealed that freedom is gradual. No one sheds their early conditioning overnight, but with each question, each act of self-examination, you reclaim a bit more ground. Over time, inherited beliefs are replaced by chosen convictions. The process is never finished, but every step is progress. He closed with a challenge. Most people fear the discomfort of doubt, but the greatest growth happens in uncertainty. Will you risk the unknown for the sake of living a life that's truly yours? As this section ended, it was clear. The journey beyond inherited belief is not about destroying your roots, but about growing new branches. Real freedom means taking what serves you, letting go of what doesn't, and becoming the author of your own meaning. As our exchange approached its conclusion, I pressed for the ultimate question. If education and religion can be tools for both liberation and control, what's the practical path to freedom? What steps can anyone take, starting today, to reclaim their mind and spirit from the invisible scripts of the past? The devil, knowing his influence was in jeopardy, gave up the truth. He began with choosing participation over passivity. You cannot simply absorb your way to wisdom. True education and true faith require your active engagement. Read widely, listen deeply, but refuse to accept any answer as final. Make learning a verb, not a label. He described the discipline of doubt. Cultivate the habit of healthy skepticism. Whenever you hear an idea, especially from authority, ask, who benefits if I believe this? Does this view help me grow or shrink? The most powerful mind is the one that can hold an idea, test it, and release it if it doesn't serve. The devil explained spiritual sovereignty. No one else can walk your path. At some point, you must claim the right to your own beliefs, your own practices, your own relationship with meaning. Take what lifts you, release what weighs you down. The world is full of borrowed certainties. Freedom is built on chosen convictions. He stressed the value of lifetime learning. Let education be a never-ending journey. The mind is most alive when it's curious, not when it thinks it has all the answers. Seek out conversations with those who challenge you, books that unsettle you, experiences that stretch your comfort zone. The devil's grip is weakest on those who keep growing. We discussed the transformation of tradition. You don't have to reject your roots to outgrow them. Honor what is wise, but let go of what is merely familiar. Traditions can be beautiful, but only when they are lived, not just inherited. The strongest communities are built by those who bring fresh questions, not just rote obedience. He described the importance of authentic connection. Find or create spaces where real conversation is, welcome places where doubt, struggle, and new ideas are embraced. Community isn't about sameness, it's about shared courage. The more honest the dialogue, the more everyone grows. The devil's last confession was simple. My greatest tool is comfort. If I can keep you passive, unquestioning, and certain, I win by default. But every question, every act of curiosity, every moment of discomfort for the sake of growth, these are cracks in my armor. As our conversation ended, the path forward was clear. The greatest education is the lifelong act of reclaiming your own mind. The deepest faith is the courage to seek, to question, and to make meaning from the inside out. So, as you close this chapter, ask yourself, what belief, tradition, or lesson have you never questioned? What step can you take today to make your learning, your faith, your life truly your own? Having unmasked the ways education and religion shape lives, I press the devil further. If so much of our thinking is borrowed, how can anyone truly transform these forces from tools of control into engines of growth? What does it look like in practice to reclaim your mind while still living and working in a world shaped by tradition and expectation? The devil, uncharacteristically thoughtful, answered with strategies as practical as they were radical. He began with conscious reinterpretation. The difference between a prison and a playground is perspective. The same lesson, the same ritual, the same community can either keep you small or push you to grow, depending on how you engage with it. Question the intent behind every tradition. Does this bring me closer to my values or farther away? Am I here out of love or out of habit? Only by bringing awareness to your actions can you transform them. He described the process of active integration. You don't have to reject your past to outgrow it. Take what is useful discipline, courage, compassion, and leave what stunts your curiosity or burdens you with guilt. Blend the wisdom of your upbringing with your own discoveries. Create personal rituals, not just inherited ones. The awakened mix the best of both worlds, roots and wings. We discussed practical resistance. In a world that rewards conformity, living authentically requires daily, often quiet acts of rebellion. Speak your truth gently, but clearly. Ask real questions, not just the ones aloud. Bring creativity into routines, whether at work, at home, or in worship. Let your presence encourage others to show up as themselves. Real change rarely starts on a grand stage. It begins in honest conversations and the courage to model difference. The devil revealed the strength of lifelong learning. The mind that keeps growing cannot be trapped. Pursue new knowledge outside your comfort zone. Study art if you're an engineer, science if you're a poet, worldviews that challenge your upbringing. A flexible mind is my worst enemy. He spoke about the transformation of guilt and shame. When old voices whisper that you don't belong or that questioning is betrayal, recognize them as echoes of an old script. Instead of reacting with fear, respond with curiosity. Is this feeling useful? Who does it serve? Compassion for yourself is the antidote to inherited shame. We explored the idea of teaching by example. The most powerful way to transform an institution is from within. When you question respectfully, invite new perspectives, and encourage open dialogue, you become a living catalyst. Children, students, friends, seven elders learn most by watching someone live honestly, not by being told what to believe. The devil left me with a provocative insight. You may never change the whole system, but you can always change how you relate to it. Every time you show up with intention, with questions, with kindness and courage, you reclaim a piece of your mind and give others permission to do the same. So, what is one tradition, lesson, or belief you could reinterpret today, not by rejecting your past, but by making it truly your own? How can you use the tools of education and religion to grow in freedom, not in fear? The journey of transformation is not about breaking away from your roots, but about planting yourself where you can reach for the sun. The deeper we went, the clearer it became that true freedom isn't a single, dramatic act, but a slow, daily practice of waking up. I pushed the devil for more. What does everyday liberation look like? How does someone turn inherited scripts into conscious choice, especially when family, culture, or community pressure is intense? For once, the devil's answer was less smug, almost respectful of those who managed to do it. He started with the power of small awakenings. Liberation begins not in grand gestures, but in the smallest acts of awareness. It's the moment you pause before repeating a habit or belief, asking, "Is this really mine?" Each time you question, you break the spell a little more. You don't have to abandon your family, faith, or community, but you must learn to bring your whole self, not just your rehearsed part. He explained the importance of environmental design. Shape your world to support your awakening. Create spaces physical, digital, relational, where real questions are welcome. Seek out books, conversations, even art that make you think and feel differently. Limit your exposure to voices and spaces that reward only obedience or sameness. Freedom flourishes in fertile ground. We explored the role of community. The right people can accelerate your growth or anchor you in the past. Find even one ally who values curiosity, honesty, and growth. Share your journey, your doubts, your discoveries. Communities are changed not by those who shout loudest, but by those who live most authentically, who model freedom quietly and persistently. The devil described the challenge of boundaries. You will face resistance. Family may call you rebellious. Friends may tease. Faith leaders may warn you of straying. But healthy boundaries are acts of self-respect. You can honor your heritage without obeying every expectation. The most liberated souls offer respect to others without asking for permission to live honestly. He spoke of the danger of complacency and comfort. Comfort is my greatest trap. When growth feels hard, old habits offer easy relief. The awakened fight this by building small rituals, daily questions, honest conversations, regular reflection. Freedom is less about escape, more about presence coming back to your own intentions again and again. We discussed the practice of compassionate self-leadership. Be patient with yourself. Unlearning takes time. Celebrate each time you notice an old reflex and choose differently. When guilt or fear rises, meet it with kindness, not more judgment. You are both the student and the teacher in your own life. The devil left me with a final warning for this part. Society will always push for uniformity. The boldest act is not to rebel for rebellion's sake, but to live true in plain sight. Every day you return to yourself, you make it easier for others to do the same. So, ask yourself, what's one habit, belief, or relationship you could approach differently today? How can you create more room for questions, courage, and honest growth even in the most familiar places? True liberation is built in moments, not monuments. Freedom is the choice to become yourself over and over, no matter who's watching. As the dialogue unfolded, it became clear that the real power of education and religion isn't in the institutions themselves, but in how each individual responds to them. I pressed the devil. What does it look like to turn old scripts into new growth, not just for yourself, but for those around you? Can one person's awakening truly shift the world beyond their own life? He began with the idea of personal agency. Freedom starts the moment you recognize your power to choose not just your beliefs, but your responses. When you encounter a lesson, a tradition, or a dogma, you can pause and decide, will I follow this out of habit, or will I engage with it on purpose? Agency is the muscle that grows every time you question, adapt, or reinterpret a message. The devil explained the ripple effect of modeling growth. You don't need a pulpit or a podium to make change. Your children, friends, and even casual acquaintances learn far more from your honesty and curiosity than from your arguments. Every time you share your doubts, your process, or your evolving perspective, you give permission for others to do the same. Quiet courage multiplies. He described the transformation of old rituals into living practice. Instead of discarding all you've inherited, choose to update your traditions. Bring new meaning to old holidays, use prayers or affirmations that align with your values, and invite others to create new rituals together. In doing so, you turn static ceremonies into living connections. We discussed breaking cycles of shame and secrecy. Many are afraid to question openly, fearing exile or judgment, but the cycle breaks the moment someone dares to speak. I wonder if there's another way. Or, that never made sense to me either. These small admissions can spark honest dialogue, freeing entire families or communities to grow together. The devil revealed the value of mentorship and mutual learning. No one escapes conditioning alone. Find teachers who value curiosity over conformity and become a mentor for those younger in their journey. Share not just your successes, but your process of questioning, failing, and choosing again. Vulnerability is contagious. It's how wisdom, not just knowledge, is passed on. He spoke of celebrating progress, not perfection. Transformation isn't about reaching a final truth, but about becoming more honest, more present, more willing to learn. Honor each milestone. The first hard question asked, the first ritual made your own, the first tradition reshaped. The small victories matter most. We explored community as a catalyst. If even one person in a group models freedom, it changes the climate for everyone. Encourage gatherings, formal or informal, where the goal isn't uniformity, but honest discovery. The healthiest communities are built by those who cherish growth more than comfort. The devil closed with a challenge. How will you use your influence? Will you hide your awakening or let it light the way for others? Remember, institutions are slow to change, but individuals, through daily acts, can start a quiet revolution. So, as you consider your own path, ask, which old scripts are ready for renewal? Where can your courage become permission for someone else? The world changes one honest act at a time, and the first step is always your own. As our conversation neared its crescendo, I pressed the devil for one final secret. What happens when a generation awakens, when more and more people begin to question, reinterpret, and live with intention instead of inherited scripts? Can the world itself truly change, or is every mind forever captive to the first lessons it learned? For the first time, the devil seemed uneasy. He spoke of the compounding effect of curiosity. Every act of honest questioning is a seed. One person's courage to doubt, to learn, to update their beliefs, plants an idea that can sprout in the minds of family, friends, even strangers. When these seeds multiply, the old soiled, unquestioned traditions, the culture of silence begins to crack. This is how societies move from the tyranny of, because we've always done it this way, to a culture of possibility. The devil described the ripple effect of new conversations. When people talk openly about doubt and growth, walls fall. Families become places where children can wonder out loud. Classrooms transform from echo chambers into playgrounds for new ideas. Churches and communities evolve, welcoming debate as a sign of deeper faith, not betrayal. He explained the power of critical thinking as a collective skill. A generation that prizes the question as much as the answer becomes hard to control. The more people practice curiosity, the less they fear disagreement, the more immune they are to dogma, whether religious, political, or cultural. Institutions become more accountable when the people inside them are awake. But the devil warned of the pushback from the old guard. Not everyone welcomes change. Those most invested in comfort, tradition, or authority will push back hard. They will call the questioners dangerous, rebellious, or ungrateful. Some will try to punish, others will shame, many will try to distract. That's when the seeds of change need the most care. We discussed the importance of resilience and solidarity. Real transformation doesn't happen in a single season. There will be moments when doubt feels lonely, when questioning costs you status, safety, or old relationships. The answer is not to harden, but to connect. Find others who are also awake. Share your struggles and your progress. Support one another through the discomfort of growth. The devil acknowledged the need for patience and humility. Progress is slow. Institutions built on obedience don't crumble overnight. But every small win, a school that teaches kids to think, a family that rewards questions, a faith that welcomes seekers builds momentum. Over time, the world shifts, not from revolution, but from a million daily acts of honesty. He ended with a powerful truth. If you want to change the world, start by questioning your own thinking. Become the parent, the teacher, the friend who invites others to ask, to doubt, to dream. Over time, your example becomes the new tradition, the one built not on fear, but on freedom. So, as you listen to this, ask, where in your world is honest curiosity needed most? Which tradition, system, or story is overdue for new questions? Change begins within, but its echoes are endless. The devil's power wanes when the world learns to think for itself. As our conversation drew to a close, the devil's bravado faded. For once, he spoke quietly, almost in awe of the very power he'd tried to suppress. You see now, he admitted, that the real war is never for institutions, but for the mind and the spirit of each person. My greatest victories aren't in the rules written by schools or churches, but in the silent surrender of individuals who never learn to question what they've inherited. He explained the lasting battle between comfort and courage. It's always easier to drift along, to repeat what you've been taught, to accept tradition as destiny. But comfort is a velvet prison. It feels safe until you realize how much of yourself you've traded away. Courage begins the moment you dare to look at your own beliefs, to ask who benefits from your obedience, and to risk being differentiven, if only in your own thoughts. The devil described the final test of freedom. Real education, real faith, is a journey that never ends. The strongest minds are those that outgrow their teachers, not by rejecting them, but by building on what was given, adding new questions, seeking new meaning. Spiritual maturity is measured not by how closely you follow the rules, but by how bravely you seek your own relationship to truth. He pointed to legacy as a living process. The lessons you choose to question or keep become the curriculum for everyone who watches you, your children, friends, colleagues. You are always teaching by example, even when you don't intend to. What you normalize today, curiosity or conformity, growth or fear, will echo in others for years to come. We discussed the joy and risk of reinvention. Freedom comes at a cost. You may lose the approval of those who never learn to think for themselves. You may walk alone, at least for a time. But you will gain your own trust, your own voice, your own capacity for wonder. Every new belief examined, every tradition reimagined, is an act of courage that expands the possibilities of your life and the lives you touch. The devil ended his confession with a challenge. What will you do with the mind you've been given? Will you spend your days guarding borrowed scripts, or will you become the author of a story that is truly your own? The institutions will survive, but the world is remade every day by those who refuse to let fear and habit write their future. So, as you step beyond this chapter, ask yourself, what lesson, faith, or tradition are you finally ready to re-examine, and not out of rebellion, but out of love for your own potential? Whose world might open just because you dared to ask a better question? The devil's greatest fear is not your anger, but your awakening. This is the true work of a lifetime, to outgrow, to outthink, to outlove the scripts that were handed to you. You do not need permission, only the willingness to begin.